All right, everybody, how are you doing? It's Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you tonight on No Soundbites Allowed, talking about the third debate of the 2020 Democratic nominees, the September edition, which has only 10 of the candidates. And we're going to try and run through this really quick. I'm going to try and spend about a minute or so on each candidate, just as they're going to have about 1 minute to introduce themselves, because I think that says everything about them. And hopefully, we'll learn a lot more. So I'm going to go right into it and just start off with the first candidate, who's going to be Julian Castro, and what he has to say for himself.
Secretary Julian Castro.
All right, so that's Julian Castro. And let's look at what Julian Castro really said here. He said there's a bold idea. The bold ideas are the ideas that we've heard over and over again. There's nothing new here. So he offered what? Universal health care. Same thing that was offered in 2016, same thing that was offered in 2004, 2012, and 2008. It's not a new idea. It's not bold. It's not original. And it's been rejected by the American people repeatedly. He mentions that he started off with speaking in Spanish, looking for the Spanish vote. Not a new thing. Democrats have been after that for decades. And just because he's Hispanic doesn't make it better. Being Spanish is not an intrinsic trait of success. It's not a good nor a bad thing. It's just he was born Hispanic. Who cares? That's not a reason to vote for someone. So, what did he really say? Oh, we're going to get universal health care. How do you pay for that? He said that we're going to get free stuff. Who's paying for that? He said that he's going to be a great man like President Jimmy Carter, an individual who's been cited for being an anti-Semite, an individual who failed the United States with the Iran hostage controversy situation, which most of the young voters he's appealing to or trying to appeal to haven't been born to be able to know about. But guess what? I'm 51. I do remember that. And many Americans do as well. Carter wasn't a great president. Clinton is known for his sexual assaults against women. Not a great man. And you want to talk about who? Who else? President Obama, an entire administration that was plagued with scandal after scandal after scandal. Not exactly the kind of uplifting message for someone who wants to be a president. But hey, that's his way of moving forward. Let's see who is next on the list. All right, so sorry about that. That's Amy Klobuchar. She is the moderate. She's the middle ground. She's the non-socialist, non-progressive Democrat. And that's her offer. She's not a socialist. She's not a progressive. She is the middle ground. And she can beat President Trump, who she feels is a problem. And there's the main theme of the entire night. President Trump is bad because the Democrats say so, because they feel like that, because they didn't win in 2016. Well, Amy, let's ask you a really simple question. What are you offering? You're offering to not be a socialist. You're offering to not be a progressive. That's a great answer, except that doesn't win. And in fact, only 1.2% of the entire Democratic Party believes in what you have to say over the last 9 months, according to Real Clear Politics and the polling data. You barely made it on the stage. The real thing is that what you're picking on isn't the problem. You say that President Trump, that he lied, except he's lived up to his campaign promises over and over again. Democrats didn't like his campaign promises, but that's not the point. He lived up to the promise he made. You just don't like it. And she's offering instead that people should like her promises and that she's better because she likes her answers. Well, not everyone likes that. So let's see what the next offer is coming from the Democratic Party. What else do they have to offer us? All right, so now we understand what Amy Klobuchar is talking about. She's talking about this kind of progressive extremism. The extremism that makes it possible for Robert O'Rourke, a white Irish man who so despises his own life, his own race, his own birthright, that he goes by the name of Beto O'Rourke. He's a fake Hispanic. And this fake Hispanic wants to blame another individual for an evil act of mass shooting. And we know for a fact that the mass shooter, in documentation confirmed by credible news sources, said that he wasn't doing it because of President Trump. He wasn't doing it because of white nationalism. He was doing it for his own evil, twisted, crazed reasons. But yet, Beto O'Rourke wants to blame it on President Trump because that serves his political preference. That serves his political ambition. And he wants to say that he's going to be the voice for America, that he is an ideal leader because he's given up his race. He has taken on a new identity. This is what his politics are about, that we should all be what he would prefer, the progressive idea. I tell you, I don't agree with that. To be able to call someone out and say, hey, I don't like you, so you must be a criminal, that you must be a racist, that you must be evil because I don't agree, that's a problem. That's what he said, and that's a problem, I think, for America. Because what's the difference when they come after you and they say you are an evil person because they don't like what you have to say? That's what Robert O'Rourke is offering the public. And I think that's a bit of a problem there. That's troubling. But let's see what the next one has to say. All right. Wow. Corey's pretty straightforward there. He tells us we should vote for him because of his great success 20 years ago. 20 years ago, he had his success. Where is his success as a senator? He doesn't mention it because there are none. He mentions how he went in New Jersey and he's gone out there, and you have to ask the question, so he's removed all of gun violence in New Jersey. Well, no, that's not true. He removed the drug violence that's in New Jersey. Well, no, that's not true. He removed all of the conflict in New Jersey. Well, that's not true. He improved the economy of New Jersey. Well, that's not true either. In fact, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't gotten an accomplishment. But he wants you to think and feel, more importantly, feel like there is. Because he wants you to unify under his banner, a progressive banner. That they need to unify the Democratic Party under his ideas, and then you can unite the United States under the Democratic progressive ideas. That doesn't sound like America. America isn't about falling in line with a party or political ideal. It's a nation of individuals, not the party politics. And we've heard it already from several people that we want to be they want to unify the United States. They want the United States to be homogenous, to be uniform in their progressive ideas. They keep mentioning about how there's so much hate out there, except they're the party who talks about separating people based on their gender, separating people based on their sexual preference, separating people based on their skin color. That's a Democratic thing. That's what the 2020 Democrats are talking about. And he's talking about unity? Unity under what banner? I don't know, but let's see what the next Democrat has to say as we go forward. All right, so let's get right into this. Andrew Yang, the reason why we don't trust politicians is because of the deception that you just provided. The reason why we don't trust people who are in leadership positions is because of things when they do things like you just did, Andrew Yang, which is break the law. In particular, 18 U.S. Code 597, expenditures to influence voting. In other words, you just tried to buy votes. That's what you're doing. You're trying to buy votes. And that is illegal. That's a crime. And if the moderators were doing their job, Andrew Yang would be yanked off the stage right now and he would be arrested because that's a crime. That's against that's the principles of elections. That's against American policy. It's wrong. And he should be held accountable to that. But let's look at everything else he had to say. You know what else you said, Andrew? You stole the idea from the Republicans. You don't think the government is the best at spending our tax dollars. Well, guess what? That's a Republican ideal. The Republicans don't believe that the government can spend money better than individuals can. The Republicans believe that Americans should keep their money. Now, Andrew, you decide that you want to give people $3.1 trillion out of thin air. Money doesn't come from nowhere. Where's that money coming from? You know what? Republicans have a simple answer. Rather than trying to create new money and cause inflation and harm the economy, real simple. Government just takes less of your money. If you're going to take a Republican idea as a Democrat, at least take the idea that actually exists and use it properly. Andrew Yang, you just committed a crime and you can't even steal a good idea. I don't think you're a good presidential candidate. Some people may disagree, but that's where I stand with that. Let's see who's the next one on the list. All right, big bold ideas. Big bold ideas. I don't know. A big bold idea like not bowing down to other nations, like standing up to China, like standing up to North Korea, like I don't know, building a wall, securing the nation. Big bold ideas. We have that right now. It's called President Trump and his policies. Pete Buttigieg, that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about bowing to the UN to make America less than the leader of the world and to be less than a great nation. You're trying to impress people by the fact that you're a veteran, and I thank you for your service, but that doesn't mean that you're a good candidate. Just because you served our nation once doesn't mean you can serve it in every way. You're talking about South Bend, Indiana, and the fact that business is coming back. Guess what? Business wasn't coming back because of President Obama or Democratic policies. In fact, that's what forced those businesses out of the United States. In fact, Republican ideals are what brought business back to America. President Trump helped bring back more money than President Obama and President Clinton combined were able to bring back. In fact, it was more money than President Bush and President Obama were able to bring back into the United States. The success you're talking about is based on Republican efforts, not Democrat efforts. But you want to tell us that you have the big, bold ideas. Do those big, bold ideas take America forward, or does it take it backward? Do those ideas help make America stronger, like we are now, or does it bring it backwards in time to when we were weaker and less capable? I leave that for the public to decide, but let's move on to the next person. Yeah, that's interesting. So Kamala Harris, let's take this from the top. Uh, First of all, the thing that keep me up at night is hearing that the Democratic Party, that you in particular, want to confiscate the property of American citizens who live by the law, that have done no wrong, as you have said, and we'll say later in this debate. What else can we say? Well, Kamala Harris, you don't like President Trump. That's fine. You don't have to like him. He's still the president. That doesn't mean he's good or bad at his job. You just don't like him. And that's not a reason. You want to say that, well, he's just evil, that he's been horrible, that he's been promoting hate. Excuse me. As I mentioned before, the Democratic Party is the party that separates people by their color, by their sexual preference, by their religious beliefs, by their political beliefs. When gender identity politics is all about separation of people, not unifying them, that's your party, not the Republican Party, not President Trump. That's a Democratic issue. So when I hear Kamala Harris say, well, these are the things that I'm upset about, you're upset about your own party. You're not upset about President Trump. You're not upset about Republicans. You're upset about your party. Or at least you would be if you were being honest. But that doesn't seem to be the case. You're picking on, and you went straight for the jugular to go after President Trump, to say, I don't like President Trump, because your party has been promoting that, because that should be able to get you votes. But that doesn't mean you're a good candidate. And that's the problem. You don't see the difference. But maybe the next candidate on the list may be able to do that. Let's find out, okay? Yeah. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Oh my, oh my. Bernie Sanders, let's get this straight. Okay, here's a couple of things. First of all, you're promoting socialism, which is one of the biggest authoritarian oligarchies that the world has ever seen. Look at China, look at Russia, look at Cuba, look at Venezuela. That's where the oligarchies are. You're seeing that with socialism. Now, beyond that, let's move beyond that. You want to have you want the Green New Deal. Fantastic. You can't afford it. Where's the money coming from? You want to have universal health care, except you're mandating and taking away people's choice because by the very terms of your own bill, Medicaid for all, people don't get a choice. You strip away their right, their freedom to choose and impose your will on them. Again, going back to socialism, going back to an oligarchy. You're talking about, oh, you're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Who's paying for that? He's talking about a lot of money that's being paid, but I don't hear him offering it because Bernie Sanders is now a millionaire, a multimillionaire, no, well, actually just a millionaire with 3 homes because of the capitalist society that he is decrying. The very system that gave him his wealth, he's saying he wants to get rid of. Except he's not willing to give up any of his money. He's willing to give up your money. Notice, he's talking about everyone else. He hasn't volunteered any money. He hasn't given it away in donations. He hasn't gone out and helped any programs. He's rich now, but he doesn't want you to be rich. He wants to be able to be in control. Guess what? That's not a problem of Mr. President Trump. That's a problem of Bernie Sanders. That's a problem of socialism. But let's hear what the next candidate has to say. All right, so there's Elizabeth Warren. She's the answer to everything. She can fix it all. Except here's the problem. Elizabeth Warren, uh, you got your success in college because you lied. You lied. You're a white woman and you said you're an American Indian. And that's not true. You're as American Indian as I am Samoan. 1/1024th. And so you manipulated the system to use it to your advantage, and you now make $400,000 a year. And guess what? You didn't just make that overnight. And that's not the salary you make because you're a member of the Senate. That's the money you make because you're a teacher. And that says something. Yes, it's wonderful that you had great success. Yes, you had to struggle to get there. But guess what? You also took advantage of the system along the way. You took away, you used the loopholes out there and you used them to your advantage. And now you want to close those loopholes so no one else can do the same thing you did. And you still want us to forgive and forget that you were lying to people for decades to be able to get an advantage over people who should have had that advantage in the first place. Oh, yes, many people had to struggle. You weren't struggling like most people struggle. You know, I know a lot of professors out there who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I also know a lot of people who are poor, like in the Bronx, like where I grew up, like my family, who are making $20,000, $30,000 a year. It's not the same thing. It's not the same struggle. You make it sound like it is. It's not. And that's very simple. It's like saying you think you're an American Indian, but you're not. It's not the same thing. Just because you think you know the answer doesn't mean it is the answer. But let's see what the other candidate has to say. This should be. Wow. Okay. Wow. I just don't even know what to say. Because, Joe Biden, if he gets to be president, he's going to cure cancer. I don't know how much more of an exaggerated claim you can make that if you make Joe Biden the president, he will get rid of cancer. Really? And Joe, by the way, I know I'm tired. It's 2:30 in the morning, but wow, you look really bad. But so he's exaggerating his capabilities that because he's president will cure cancer. I'm sorry, no. And let's think about this. Why should Americans have their head down? Why should they say, woe is me? The only people who are saying woe is me are Democrats, in particular progressive Democrats. They're the only ones who have their heads down. They're the only ones who are saying woe is me. They're the people who in 2016 started screaming and crying and complaining and marching because they lost an election. Because it was an election, a due legal election, and you lost. And it's only been the Democrats who have been screaming about that. They're the only ones who are upset about that. They're the only ones who are complaining about that. So I don't understand what you mean. Americans have their heads down. I know lots of Republicans, conservatives, libertarians. They're not upset. I know a lot of progressives and socialists who are very upset. Not the same thing, Joe. Not the same thing. And you know what? Making huge claims like we're going to cure cancer, that's not in your power. You can fund cancer research, but that doesn't mean we're going to get the cure. We've been funding that for a long time. That doesn't make you a president. And making big claims and making people think that you're better, that you're somehow some kind of messiah, that was Obama. He gave people that hope and change image. That's not you, Joe. That's not. I mean, that's why you had to say that it's kids in every zip code, because the last time you said that, you mentioned that black kids weren't as good as white kids. You're a gaffe machine, and you're not good at not being a gaffe machine. But this is what the Democrats have to offer us. Big ideas, they keep saying. Big ideas, which are, we're going to spend more. We're going to tax more. They have big ideas like, you're going to become a socialist whether you like it or not. You're going to listen to us whether you like it or not, because you have to unify under our banner, not yours, not someone else's, under their banner. These are the big ideas that they're offering. And the answer and the reason why you have to accept it is because they don't like President Trump. And they keep saying, President Trump has not been successful, except unemployment is down, dramatically down. because President Trump has passed several of the things that they want, like criminal justice reform, that President Obama wouldn't do, because President Trump is trying to secure the border so illegal aliens don't get into the nation, and Democrats want illegal aliens in the nation, especially if they can give them a driver's license that lets them vote. These are the things that are going on. This is what's being offered in the 2020 election. Really think about it. You got candidates who are trying to buy votes, Andrew Yang. You got candidates who say the only reason that you should vote for them is because they're not as extreme as everyone else. No one has a good idea. No one has a new idea that Democrats haven't said for the last 20, 30, 40 years. No one out there is actually offering the American people something better. And they want to win? I don't know. I don't think so. And I don't think 10 of them will be back at the next debate. I think it'll be more like 4. But we'll see. And I'll tell you right now, my bet is you're going to see that, as I said in October, the answer is going to be, it's going to be Elizabeth Warren, it's going to be Kamala Harris, vice president and president, because they're going to go with an all-women approach with women of color against the evil misogynist of President Trump. And if you don't agree with that, well, you're a sexist and you're a racist, because that's what they are all about right now. Because their big idea is that if you're not them, you must be bad. And I reject that. I reject that entirely. I reject and can't stand the 2020 debate. It was horrible. And all the reasons that I mentioned and many more. But I hope everyone else enjoys the evening or the morning when you see this. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts about this. Thank you. And you have a good night, folks.